Hey guys, my name is Aldas, and in today's video I'm going to be starting my Rise of Red Bull series. Now this was by far the most requested team by you guys on my previous Rise/Downfall series, which was of course about Mercedes. If you want to go see it, then check it out. I'll link it above. And yeah, once again, this will be a three-part series, just like it always has been. Part 1 today will be from 2005 to 2009. Part 2 will be from 2010 to 2015. And then Part 3 will be from 2016 onwards and looking ahead to 2019 as well. Now, don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, then like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And yeah, let's get into it. Now, one little disclaimer before I start is that throughout this series, I'm not going to be discussing Toro Rosso that much. I will, of course, be mentioning it because it is a big part of Red Bull. It's their junior team, but it's not going to be talked about a lot. I'm only going to be sort of mentioning it. So I just wanted to sort of have that as a bit of a disclaimer, and that's for the entire three-part series. But anyway, now, Red Bull actually started in Formula 1 in 1995 as a sponsor for Sauber. They were sponsored on the car from 1995 to 2004 and produced some really cool looking cars, by the way. I mean, some seriously good liveries. I feel like the Sauber's always had some good liveries over the years, and when they were sponsored by Red Bull, like I said, from 95 to 2004, they produced some really good looking cars. Now, Red Bull as a team actually began as Stewart Grand Prix in 1997, which is of course Jackie Stewart's team back in the day. It was then sold off to Ford, who rebranded it as Jaguar, who they of course owned for the 1999 season. Now, after years of lackluster performances by Jaguar, Ford had had enough and decided to sell the team in September of 2004 to Red Bull. Now, one of the biggest reasons for this was very simply money. The amount of money that Ford was actually funneling into Jaguar was a huge amount of money. Even when they sold the team, they were still spending something like £1.07 million a week just keeping the team going. And of course, Ford were also, during 2004, going through a bit of a financial crisis and everything like that, and had loads of financial problems, so it only made sense to sell the team. And yeah, like I said, Red Bull were the ones to snap it up, and this is where Red Bull that we know today began. Now, everything from the purchase of the team to the rise of Red Bull and where they are today, in my opinion, is down to four main people. Now, number one is the financial backer, a man called Dietrich Mateschitz, who is, of course, the owner of Red Bull, not just the racing team, but the entire Red Bull brand. So, he's definitely got a couple dollars in his pocket. And one important thing to note is that sometimes he's referred to as Didi Mateschitz, and that's what I call him as well. So if you ever hear me say Didi Mateschitz, that's what I'm talking about. Now, he never actually fully disclosed what he bought the team from Ford, but it was estimated, and Ford said that they would only sell to a buyer that would give them £200 million over 3 seasons, which is quite incredible, really, because if you think about it, £200 million over 3 seasons, and in 2018, so over a decade later, 14 years later actually, it was estimated, somewhere I saw like a figure, Red Bull spent close to £400 million in 2018, so it just shows you how much money has gone up over 14 years. And, you know, even with inflation and everything, it's still quite astonishing, actually. But anyway, now with this deal, obviously 340 jobs were saved at Milton Keynes. And he, you know, at the end of the day, Ford, like I said, was going through a crisis. And Didi Mateschitz was not only the man with the money, but he had the ambition as well to not only buy the team, but turn Red Bull into a winning force. Now, the next person that was instrumental to the success at Red Bull is the manager of the Young Driver program, Helmut Marko. Now, he had actually known Didi for a long time, even before the Jaguar purchase, and he was the perfect driver manager. He had over his career the entire 360 sort of motorsport experience. Not only was he a driver and racer himself, but he was also a driver manager at one point and a team owner as well, and turned to a Red Bull advisor later on. So literally, he was the perfect guy to sort of fill the little gap of managing the drivers and bringing young talent through. Now, like I said, he has had a team experience in the past. He ran a Formula 3 and a Formula 3000 team in 1989, which actually in 1999 became the Red Bull Junior team, which he also ran. But he was so much more than just a young driver manager to Red Bull. Not only was he, like I said, an advisor, but he was the man that convinced Adrian Newey to join Red Bull from McLaren in 2005. And not only that, he was also the man that announced the next piece of the puzzle to join the Red Bull team. Now, the next piece of the puzzle is Christian Horner, who was announced on the 8th of January in 2005 as the team principal for Red Bull by Helmut Marko himself. Now, he is, and I think still is actually to this day, the youngest ever team principal of a team ever. He was 31 when he took the role in 2005. And in the true spirit of Red Bull, I mean, I think that's incredible, first of all, at 31 years old to run your own team. But in the true spirit of Red Bull, just because he was young does not mean he did not have talent, and does not mean that he could not do the job. Christian Horner was already involved in team management in Formula 3000 since 1997, working his way up to having a very successful team in that series, and actually in 2005 had just won back-to-back drivers and constructors titles in 2003 and 2004 with his team in Formula 3000. So he definitely knew how to do the job, and in my opinion, it was a great appointment as we know now. Now, the last man that I attribute Red Bull's success to is Adrian Newey, the design guru himself. Now, he actually joined the team after signing after their first season at the end of 2005. Now, as far as Adrian Newey, he is arguably the most famous Formula 1 designer of all time. He, of course, had been such a successful designer and technical director for both Williams and McLaren, winning multiple world championships with both of them, and, of course, other teams as well. He designed cars for legendary drivers like Mansell and Hakkinen, so he definitely knew what to do and had bundles of experience. Now, he decided to actually leave the team, leave McLaren at the time where he was working at the end of 2005 after a little bit of a sour end to his relationship with McLaren. There were so many rumors at the time whether he would be leaving McLaren, whether he would be staying with them or going to Williams or even retiring from the sport full stop. So he described his move to Red Bull as he needed a new challenge and just try something different, really. He really liked Christian Horner and the way he conducted himself, and like I said, ended up signing with him at the end of 2005 on the 8th of November actually for $10 million a year, but officially joined Red Bull at the start of the 2006 season. So these four men to me are probably the biggest reasons why Red Bull has had the success it has in such a short amount of time. And not only that, but managed to sustain it as well and have, maybe not championship winning cars even up till 2018, but been contenders and have had some of the best drivers on the grid. These four, in my opinion, not only started it, but also have maintained their success. Christian Horner, Dietrich Mateschitz, Helmut Marko, and Adrian Newey. Now, it was announced fairly early that for 2005 and their debut season in Formula 1, Red Bull would be using the Cosworth engine that Jaguar were using the year before. Now, as far as drivers, it was Christian Klein, who was a rookie at Jaguar in 2004, and Vitantonio Liuzzi, who was a Formula 3000 champion at the time. Those were the two men that looked most likely to get the two seats at Red Bull for 2005. However, Red Bull managed to sign experienced driver David Coulthard, who had left McLaren on the 17th of December to partner Christian Klein for the 2005 season, with Vitantonio Liuzzi taking part in some of the races during that season as well. Now, for their debut season in Formula 1, Red Bull had actually had a pretty good season, scoring 34 points and finishing 7th in the Constructors' Championship. So really doing a lot better than Jaguar had done the previous year. Now, David Coulthard, showing his experience, was a pretty consistent point scorer actually throughout the entire season and had a pretty good debut season actually, scoring 24 points for the team. However, both Christian Klein and Vitantonio Liuzzi not as much and weren't so complimentary, only scoring 10 points between them. Now, the one thing that did sort of put the team back a little bit was their reliability and sort of some of the incidents that they got into. They actually had 9 retirements altogether for that season with quite a few reliability issues. Now, like I said, at the end of that 2005 season, Adrian Newey had joined the team after negotiations with Helmut Marko. So he was the man who actually signed him. And like I said, he joined for 2006. But didn't really have much of an impact on the car for 2006. He really got into his stride in 2007, but still a huge signing for the team and one that would, in my opinion, pretty much change the course for their team. Now, back in the day, Red Bull were really seen as a party team, basically. They weren't really being taken that seriously. And one thing that's really interesting that Newey said is that when he actually joined Red Bull, it was a completely different atmosphere. It was so much more sort of young and sort of a bit more youthful, and definitely there was just something vibrant about the team compared to the culture that Jaguar or McLaren had at the time. And in my opinion, that's a really big positive. I mean, just because they were considered a party team does not mean that they were not ambitious and does not mean that they did not want to win. I mean, I really like that they invested in youth and still do to this day, actually. Even back then, not only in their drivers, but like I said, hiring the youngest ever team principal of all time, Christian Horner, but also, like I said, having big ambitions in hiring Adrian Newey. So, and that's something that I find really interesting about Red Bull, is that they are a team like we've never seen before. They really sort of changed the mold back in the day and weren't such a serious and corporate team like Jaguar at the end sort of was. Now, one thing that was really cool that they introduced to the Formula One paddock was their Red Bull Energy Station in Monaco. And quite simply, it is basically a massive party boat with like swimming pools and bars and everything. And it's just such a cool thing. And even Monaco in 2005, they turned up with a really cool sort of Star Wars livery. And I remember there was like stormtroopers there and everything. So they were always a really, really cool team. And like I said, a team like we've never ever seen before. Now, for 2006, they were powered by the Ferrari engine after signing a 2-year deal midway through 2005. However, 2006 was not that much of a successful year for them, and actually they took a little bit of a downturn after their pretty good start to Formula One. In 2006, they finished once again in 7th in the Constructors, but this time with only 16 points. And really, it was a bad start to the season with lots of reliability issues and lots of incidents as well. But however, even throughout all of this adversity, and it really was quite dire at some points, there was loads of issues for them, Red Bull actually managed to score their first ever podium at Monaco with DC. We all know that he's a bit of a Monaco specialist, actually. And yeah, David Coulthard finishing 3rd after strong qualifying and a good race. And also, a quick highlight from that weekend was their special Superman livery as well, which was really, really cool. But yeah, it was just crazy. Even after such a dire start to the season, they managed to score their first ever podium at Monaco. I mean, really no better place to score your first ever podium. So again, even though they weren't quite performing where they wanted to, they were still getting highlights. And this was a very, very big step for them. Now, once again, part of Red Bull's sort of fun image in Formula One, Christian Horner had actually made a bet with Martin Brundle that if they had gotten on the podium for that weekend, he would jump into the pool at the energy station naked. And he was a man of his word, and Martin Brundle was literally milking it. He did not let him get away with that one. So Christian Horner ended up jumping into the swimming pool at the Red Bull Energy Station with nothing but a red cape on. So fair play to him. And I mean, really, that was literally, so to be honest, the only highlight of the season, because although they did get their first podium, the season wasn't really as good as their debut, just due to poor performance of the car, and like I said, really bad actually reliability for 2006 with 13 retirements in 2006. Now, all these reliability issues had prompted them to actually end their contract early with Ferrari and end their basically 2-year deal, and they opted for Renault for 2007, with the Ferrari engines being given to Toro Rosso, their sister team, for 2007. Now, the 2007 season was a very, very big year for Red Bull. They had a brand new driver lineup with David Coulthard staying on at the team and now partnering Mark Webber. This was huge in my opinion. Now they finally had 2 mature drivers, 2 quick drivers, and more importantly, 2 reliable drivers, because although David Coulthard had been quite consistent for the team in their first 2 years, the other seat was always sort of in and out between a couple of drivers, and whoever it was never really a match for David Coulthard, who obviously isn't the quickest guy in my opinion. But finally Mark Webber was in the team, and like I said, him and DC made a really, really good partnership and a stable driver partnership, which is what the team needed, because it was a little bit inconsistent in the first 2 years. And this was, by the way, the first ever season in considering this their 3rd season, that they did not have a single driver change throughout the entire season. So a really big positive for me, because stability, in my opinion, is key, and it definitely showed in the results. Now, the Red Bull in 2007, the RB3 was also the first car to be fully designed by Adrian Newey. Now, like I said, he actually joined the previous year, but didn't have as much of an involvement in the 2006 car. Now, immediately, the RB3 was a definite improvement over the 2006 car, and progressively, actually, throughout the season, got quicker, with lots of good performances, really, and good results throughout the season. Now, Mark and DC turned out to be a pretty good combination actually for Red Bull, and showed their speed and maturity throughout the season, putting some good results, some solid qualifyings, and it all basically culminated in another podium for Red Bull at the European Grand Prix for Mark Webber. It was at the Nürburgring, and it was actually a really wet race. But yeah, another podium for the team, so fantastic for them. I mean, it just boosts morale, boosts everything. And they ended up finishing the championship in 5th with 24 points behind Williams Toyota in 4th. However, they could have finished ahead of Williams in 4th, because they had, again, some serious reliability issues in 2007. Now, the previous year, they had 13 retirements in 2006, and in 2007, a season where they had really, really good pace, scored another podium, and actually were consistent. They had 14 retirements in total, 7 for each driver. Now, although yes, some of those were incidents, most of them were reliability issues. And just to put into perspective, Williams, who obviously finished in front of them, like I said, had only 7 retirements for their entire team, let alone 1 driver. So it's something that really, really hurt them bad. Their reliability that season cost them loads of points. And like I said, they could have finished ahead of Williams, but those 14 retirements hurt them bad. Now, for the following season in 2008, they had finished only 7th in the Constructors' Championship, so not as good as in 2007. But they actually scored more points, 29 points compared to 24 the previous year. Now, Adrian Newey actually described the 2008 car, the RB4, as the most intricate design to have rolled out of their factory. So it was still a very, very good car. And again, very impressive early pace, especially with Mark Webber, who had 5 consecutive points finishes. However, for David Coulthard, not as much. He had actually a bit of a bad start to the 2008 campaign and did not score points until the Canadian Grand Prix, where, unbelievably, he managed to actually get a podium. So it's quite crazy. You go, for such a long time at the start of the season without scoring a point, and then the first time you do, you get a podium. So, not as good for David Coulthard, and he was really beginning to just wind down a little bit in his career. Mark Webber had overtaken him at this point in terms of points. But the good news is reliability was massively improved for the 2008 season. They had only 8 retirements actually, compared to obviously 14 for the previous year, which was just diabolical. But actually only 2 of them were pure reliability. The rest of them were just on incidents. So again, that was something to look out, staying out of trouble. But only 2 pure reliability incidents. It was actually not that bad and a huge improvement over their previous season. Now, like I said, although their car was quite quick at the start, and again, Mark Webber, those 5 consecutive point finishes at the start, and DC getting that podium, it all looked really, really good actually. They were fighting for 4th place in the first part of the season with, again, strong performances and the car performing well. However, it all sort of fell apart in the second season as they started falling behind teams like Renault, Toyota, and even their sister team, Toro Rosso. Now, those teams, even in the second part of the season, were starting to score strong points, and in some cases, on occasional races, became podiums and even wins in some cases. I think it was for Renault. So, Red Bull just could not match that, and their car development clearly had not continued throughout 2008, as they just began to fall behind, basically. Now, in my opinion, I think this was due to the 2009 rule changes. I think Adrian Newey and the team sort of stopped developing that car through 2008 and started to focus on the brand new regs that were coming in for 2009. So, at the end of the day, although they started with a good car, 2008 didn't really end the way that they probably would have wanted, but it was an okay season with better reliability and still being able to produce a good car. Now, one of the biggest stories of 2008 was, of course, the Red Bull prodigy at Toro Rosso, as Sebastian Vettel won his first ever race at Monza after a wet race in a Toro Rosso. So quite amazing to think that, the sister team got the first win before the big team got their first win. So kind of funny there. But anyway, that weekend was an incredible one for Sebastian Vettel, and he was really... he shined that weekend. I find it amazing that people still think that it was just the Adrian Newey Red Bull combination that was winning him championships, as we'll talk about in the future. But that guy has so much talent, and he definitely showed it at such a young age that weekend. He became the youngest ever pole sitter, the youngest ever podium winner, and the youngest race winner as well. So an incredible weekend for the Toro Rosso driver, and what was really amazing to me is that by then actually he had already proven to Red Bull that he was a massive talent, and he already actually was announced as a Red Bull driver for that season. And this is the thing that really impressed me. He didn't just let go off the gas for that season, because he got announced midway through 2008 that he was going to join Red Bull for 2009, but he still stayed 110% on it and got the win for Toro Rosso. Now, of course, with Sebastian Vettel announced as the 2009 Red Bull driver, it was David Coulthard who retired or announced his retirement at the end of 2008. And yeah, it was quite... he announced it at the British Grand Prix, and it was quite sad to see him go, to be honest. And his final race, of course, at Brazil. He had a fantastic livery. And by the way, Red Bull have had some incredible liveries, and I'm sure we'll get to see quite a lot of them through this series. I mean, they're really one of the best teams in terms of special liveries, as I've already said, like the Superman and the Star Wars one. But yeah, he had a great livery for his last race at Brazil, but classic DC style, he crashed off at the first lap, thank you Nico Rosberg, and didn't even get to see like the second corner or something. So there's never a fairy tale ending in Formula 1, is there? David Coulthard, with an incredible car and an incredible livery on his final race, crashes out, or was crashed out, I think, by Nico Rosberg on the very first corner of the Brazilian Grand Prix. So yeah, sadly not quite the career or the ending to his career that he wanted, but he was still a massive and integral part to the rise of Red Bull, in my opinion, and he gave way to an incredible driver in Sebastian Vettel to join the team for 2009. So like I said, although the team had fallen back in the second part of that season in terms of points, Stepping back actually just for a second, you could really start seeing the progress that Red Bull had made. But within the team, especially in early car performance and a much better reliability record, they had really started to get on top of the problems that they'd had, and they started to produce consistent cars and good cars at the start of every single season, both in 2007 and in 2008 under Adrian Newey, and with now a great driver pairing for 2009 as well with Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel. Now, as we know, 2009 was the culmination of everything that Red Bull had worked for, and they had an amazing season in 2009. They finished second in the Constructors, with Vettel finishing second in the Drivers' Championship, and Mark Webber finishing fourth in the Drivers' Championship, despite actually breaking his leg at the start of the 2009 season, but still managing to make testing through massive adversity, so hats off to him. Now, Adrian Newey designed a fantastic car for 2009, and it was fast from the beginning of the season, despite the lack of the double diffuser, which the Red Bull actually did not have, but the Brawn, of course, did. The team achieved their first ever win in China of 2009 with a 1-2 finish, with Vettel winning the race. And a little fun fact, actually, the Constructors' Trophy that they got for that race, actually, one of the handles broke off, as you can see on the picture held by Christian Horner. So, I don't know, kind of little funny thing there. I mean, this the first ever time you win a race in the Constructors' Trophy, the handle breaks off. I mean, there you go. But anyway, even though Brawn sort of had the faster car at the beginning of the season, throughout 2009, Red Bull had developed immensely well. I mean, they developed really, really well throughout the entire season, and arguably, and in many people's opinions, had a much better car towards the end of the season in 2009. However, this was their time to shine, really. Even though Brawn did have a great start, both Ferrari and McLaren really struggled with the new regulations, and Red Bull had just, once again, through the genius of Adrian Newey and the team at Red Bull, developed a great car that was fast and consistent, although they did not have that double diffuser. Now, despite this, I think if they did have the double diffuser, quite honestly, I think they would have won that 2009 World Championship, or should I say Vettel would. However, it must be said that throughout all this amazing success and finally the team getting what they deserved, I mean, all of those years in that midfield, they finally had pushed their way up to the top. It must be said that reliability was once again haunting them, and a big problem for that season as well. Various incidents and various setbacks. They had 7 retirements, which although might sound good compared to 2008, just remember, now they were fighting at the top, and 7 retirements was huge, and it was not good enough, really. Their car was so quick in 2009, arguably quicker than the Brawn, but it was their reliability once again that was holding them back. And to be honest, like I said, 7 retirements at the end of that season. Brawn only had 2 the entire season with both of their drivers. So, one for Jensen, one for Barrichello. So you can really start to see where it all went wrong for them. Despite having a really, really quick car, their reliability just wasn't there, and they didn't have it right at the start of the season. Brawn definitely had an advantage right from the go in 2009. But either way, in 2009, like I said, arguably they had the quickest car at the end of the season, but sadly plagued by a few incidents and some reliability problems as well. Something they would definitely need to sort out if they would want to mount a proper title challenge the following year. But yeah, guys, it might sound like I'm being, really negative towards Red Bull for 2009 and everything like that. If we actually take that away, that they didn't manage to win the championship, the important thing is that they now established themselves as real race winners. This was the culmination of everything they had worked for since 2005, hiring Adrian Newey, doing all those, big moves like getting Sebastian Vettel in the team and going through the grind of being a midfield team. They had now, like I said, established themselves as front runners with world-class drivers like Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber that were capable of pole positions and capable of race wins as well. And with, of course, a winning designer that was now able to put out a winning car year on year on year. So, this was really, it's such a good time for Red Bull and such a great story. All the hard work paying off. And after 2009, although they didn't win the championship, they had gained valuable experience on how to fight for it, because it was now a completely different ball game. They were no longer in the midfield. They were now a full-fledged front-runner team. And like I said, sort of midway through the video, the midfield sort of party team back in the day that no one really took seriously was now a solid front-runner, capable of challenging for not only race wins, but championships in the future as well. And after 2009, challenge for championships they will, but that'll be in the next episode, guys. I'm going to end it here, and I really hope you have enjoyed it. This first part, of course, was looking at the rise of Red Bull. This was the proper rise. I mean, going from the midfield and going to almost winning the championship in 2009, it was an incredible time, and I really hope you enjoyed the episode as well. Don't forget, if you did enjoy it, then like, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I really hope you're looking forward to part 2 as well. It will be coming out very, very soon. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.